This is the Glenn Beck program. So Elon Musk's ex was spotted on the streets of Los Angeles wearing some sort of, I don't know, Star Wars Jedi outfit. Do we have the outfits? There she is. Go ahead and go to the next one. She looks like she's a Jedi Knight. She's wearing, I don't even know, leather pants and a leather
cape
and a leather onesie, and I don't know what she's wearing. But anyway, she was also reading the Communist Manifesto. Okay. Just strolling down the street of Los Angeles, dressed as some sort of Jedi, reading Karl Marx.
A totally normal thing, and surely not set up.
Surely not set up at all. Surely not maybe a desperate cry, Elon, look at me, look at me. I mean, what does she do? Who is she?
I don't know.
What is she doing here?
Do we know her other than being married to Elon Musk? Is she like a figure?
They're not married.
What? Or dating, whatever they were.
Having babies together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, because, she was the mother of whatever that weird name was.
Correct.
Is she famous for other reasons? Do we know?
Not that I know of.
So why is she? Why are there pictures? She sings. She's a singer.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
There we go. So I don't know.
Why is she parading like I don't know, Gandalf?
It doesn't look natural.
It does not. It's not like I just threw this on and I'm going for a stroll to read Karl Marx.
Right.
And positioned the whole time just so you can see the cover of it. I mean, it was a weird cry for help to someone. I don't know who.
It's the Glenn Beck program.
He's got a bigger mouth, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's very true.
Very true. All right, let me tell you about the Covenant, the $3.5 trillion stimulus package for infrastructure. I want to ask you, what exactly have we learned through COVID? What are the important lessons that we have learned? And is there any correlation at all with what apparently Washington has learned? We go there in 60 seconds. Karen wrote in and she said, I was skeptical. Let's look at what we learned during COVID. What have we learned as a society, or what should we have learned? What did you learn? Let me give you a couple of things just to start.
Started,
Family. Family is more important than any of us thought.
And you shouldn't be allowed to see them.
Yes.
that I learned.
So family is just the center of everything, and we waste a lot of time on stupid stuff.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
All right, so there's number one. Number two, we should make our own medicine.
Yeah, that we maybe our own masks, maybe our own PPE, some of that stuff that should be around. Ventilators should be available. We shouldn't be like, hey, China, please.
Okay,
that's not a good policy.
Okay, what else?
I think we've learned that things aren't as stable as we believe they were.
How do you mean?
I don't think anyone in America really believed that we could just shut down for months on end, right? I don't think anyone believed that. You see these things break out in China, and you're like, all right, SARS, and it comes and it goes, and there's everyone, there's that freak out element, and you kind of dismiss it. And I think, the idea that one day, legitimately one day, I was at an NBA game, and 3 days later, the entire society was shut down. That is something that is before this, didn't really believe was anything other than a real outlying possibility.
So you're saying maybe that our freedom is less stable.
Our freedom, our civilization is less stable. Forget what COVID is, right, for a second. Let's just say it was as deadly as MERS instead of COVID. Let's say it wasn't. Let's say it was as transmissible as COVID is, but as deadly as MERS is. I mean, this is our entire society is over. Our civilization is over in that circumstance. Like, we wipe out 25% of the population.
So
right?
I think that's
like
also
the outbreak, the movie situation is something that like we can't plan for per se, but like you realize is an outlying possibility, more than an outlying possibility. And what happened with because I also said this on the air on this show when it was happening in Italy. There's no way the United States of America would put up with what's going on in northern Italy with the shutdowns. There's no way. And then there was a way.
And there was a way.
And then all of a sudden there was a way.
Yeah.
So I think that American spirit, which would resist those types of things, is not as plentiful as I had imagined.
Okay, so let me give you, I just made some notes while you were talking. I would say family, make our own medicine, ventilators, you said PPE. We're not as stable as civilization or freedom, society. Life is precious. It can be over quickly. Sure. I added there is the corruption thing is worse than we thought it was.
Yep.
And we can teach things to the government that possibly we shouldn't teach.
Right.
Okay.
I will say that the government will never let a crisis go to waste.
Yes.
That is one I think we kind of knew, but even, I don't know.
Let's say government has its own goals.
Yes. Okay. That's fair.
All right. So let me ask you something. If these are the things that we've learned, how many, by the way, I would add another one. We need to work.
Yeah.
Might be nice to stay at home, but if we don't work, things are going to fall apart.
We don't handle it very well.
We don't handle it well, okay? And the supply chain is falling apart, partly because can't get anybody to drive, can't get anybody to work at the docks. California is one of the ones that's really backed up. Why? Because it's California, okay? You can't go to work. All right. So, family, that's a personal thing. Let's look at the government things. Make our own medicine and PPE. Is anything in the infrastructure bill doing any of that?
You'd think it would be, I don't want to say the only thing it's doing, but close to it, right?
Yeah.
You'd think that's what it would be doing.
Okay.
But no, not really.
No, okay. Are they
enough.
doing anything? Because that is make our own medicine and vents and PPE, but really look at the breakdown of our society. Shouldn't we make steel more than we're making? Shouldn't we, aren't there certain things that we should be working on with our infrastructure that we say, you know what, as a society, we should all think, you know what, let's put some more money into alluring businesses.
Yeah,
here. Because
the argument for a lot of these things is it's an inefficient way of doing it. But having it here, it's expensive. It takes sometimes it takes longer. We're not as good at putting our people to work at 914 hours a day and all of that. But I think the motivation there is when efficiency is not the most important thing, you should be able to do it. Right? When you don't have to worry about like if you're building military vessels, saving a few dollars building it in China, not a good idea.
Not a good
right?
idea.
So the more important concern is not efficiency.
Okay, so I'm looking at the government and what they're doing. Seeing that they are pushing for higher wages, unions, which always lead to more costs, taxes are going up, and regulation is going up. I don't think we're working on that one.
Yeah,
I think we're doing the opposite.
We're doing the opposite.
We're doing the opposite.
It's worse than not doing it.
We need to work. We're doing the opposite. The government is doing the opposite.
Funding you to avoid it.
Right. We're not as stable as a civilization or society. They are pushing us against each other just on vaccines alone. They are
race and gender and everything else.
January 6th versus BLM, right? At the meantime, not as stable. I added freedom into that too. We realize our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, nobody's paying attention to it.
Yeah, I mean the famous Reagan, freedom is only one generation away from disappearing. I mean, I'm butchering the quote, but that concept. You thought about that with like the Soviet Union Cold War context,
Correct.
right? Like you realize how many other things also threaten it.
Correct. Life is precious. We're really arguing about people not having the vaccine that can go out and just kill people. Innocent people. Just kill them. At the same time, we're having the argument that abortion is a blessing. Abortion should happen more often.
It's healthcare, Glenn.
Mm-hmm. Corruption. Is there anything in these $3.4 trillion bills that will help fight corruption?
Oh, I thought you were going to say help corruption. There's a lot in there.
It'll help corruption.
Yeah. When you spend $3.4 trillion, it always helps corruption.
Right. Government has its own goals.
Mm-hmm.
So with these things in mind, that these are the important lessons that we've learned, why aren't any of these things in the most important bill to ever pass in Congress?
Because it's got nothing to do with those things. But these are long-term Democratic goals to help them.
Progressive goals.
Yes. The Democratic Party, though, being the one that typically is more aggressive and I don't want to say the only one doing it, but more aggressive in furthering those goals and also increasing their own power. So, yes, I would say that the way, as is always the case, the way we're dealing with this is going to make it worse because that's what we do.
It is what we do. Now, that was why we argued against TARP. Now, if you recall, I was for TARP for about 2 days because I talked to people who were in the room the night that it was proposed. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. But this is not to give us time to prepare. This is their fix. And the fix is in. And that's a really bad thing. If it was to give us a few weeks to be able to hold things together and prepare for impact, that's one thing. This isn't that, and it's going to make things worse. We're now much worse off than we were in 2008 because the Fed is completely out of ammunition. If there is a crash now, there is nothing left the federal government can do except massive change. And I mean massive change like getting rid of the dollar. We get rid of the dollar, that means we are no longer the world's reserve currency, which means your dollar is worthless. We're Venezuela. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to address because I was on Megyn Kelly's show on Friday, and she said something along the lines of, don't you think that sometimes your predictions, you scare me to death. And maybe sometimes they're full of hyperbole. And I said, actually, no, I don't think that. I think my timing is just really off. And so you get really scared and you think, Marxists are not going to take over the United States and they're not going to be marching in the streets with red flags. And here they are. We're not on the edge of losing our Constitution or our country to Marxists. Yes, we are. How could Marxists and capitalists work together? Well, they are. And so when I say them, they are so far out of anybody's radar. Nobody's talking about it. So when it doesn't happen right away, what happens is that normalcy bias is chipped away bit by bit as you get closer to that line. And it's a really bad, dangerous place to be where you are just slowly boiled because you lose perspective on how big of a change it is. We are actually in the new normal now. We've accepted the new normal. The new normal involves things not being on the shelves, having to wait months and months and months for something that you ordered. Your favorite restaurant, local, out of business. That the government is now in bed with large corporations and they're picking winners. That's the new normal. And I'm going to explain, give me 1 minute, I'm going to come back and explain why the new normal is so dangerous, especially when it comes to your dollar. 60 seconds. Telling you to prepare with more urgency recently about the economy, and know that I am always bad with timing. And know that I am always bad with timing, but it feels like it could happen tomorrow. Might happen in 5 years from now, but it feels very close. Because we are denying certain things. The Washington Post just did an article. The U.S. economy continues to soar while American politics craters. The troubles of a company that nobody ever heard of now have people worried about another global economic crisis. Evergrande is a property developer in China with dubious distinction of being the world's most indebted real estate company with outstanding loans of more than $300 billion. But China's fundamental growth trajectory is slowing. It's an export-driven model and has become much harder to sustain as wages have risen, making it less competitive, blah, 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 blah. China is growing old. So what they're saying here is there's no reason to worry about China because China has all of these problems. Yes, it does. It does. It has a ton of problems. The problem here is this argument from the Washington Post trying to make America sound like we're roaring back to life. No, because the article, it goes from China to then Germany. Germany's got all of these problems, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's great. That's great. The problem here is that the United States is not roaring back to life. We're just trying to get to where we were, and we're having a hard time getting to where we were a couple of years ago. That's not roaring back to life. We need to innovate. We need to change things. Everything we are building, we are now building with the government's help in the opposite direction. We're becoming a more oppressive, more expensive country to do any kind of business in. That's not going to help America. Our reserve currency is the only reason why we are what we are. If the rest of the world decides to get out of the United States dollar, and the good news is the dollar is still strangely strong because who else are you going to give it to? And that's the excuse that Megyn Kelly gave to me. She said, Glenn, what other country could possibly replace us? And she's right. Today, who could possibly replace us? But that is relying on, as this article in the Washington Post this weekend was trying to point out that we're so great. No, you're pointing out that other countries suck. And that's fine. But to be the least suckiest should not be our goal. And that's what's happening. We're putting our bet on that no one else will ever be better than the United States. In 1916, if I would have said to you, the United States is going to be the world's reserve currency, you would have said, the United States? The United States, it really doesn't have an industrial base, really. It's kind of a backwater country. And they don't have the gold for that. You really think that the British pound and sterling is going to fall to the United States? By 1919, They had, but the world didn't really understand it until about 1940. Why could it happen to other countries and not to us, and be blindsided by someone else when we're not concentrating on the right things, when we're not concentrating on the things that do make us strong, that did make us America, a force to be reckoned with? You dismantle all those things, someone will beat you. So Stu and I were talking during the break, and I was reading the Fareed Zakaria op-ed in the Washington Post, where he says everything economically is fine. No, it's really not. It's really not. It's really not. We're about to begin tapering with the Fed and ending the bailouts and raising interest rates. That is going to be a shock to the system. And I wonder if we can get away with it. I wonder what is going to be happening next. We're also looking at a real crisis of the supply chain. The supply chain is breaking down, and it's happening for a few reasons, but it is happening. I said last week, you should go do your Christmas shopping now. Do your Christmas shopping now. If you have little kids, it's going to be harder to find little kid things when everybody is out looking for little kid things. Now, warning, you're going to be accused of panic buying or hoarding. That's what happens when a nation has no answer. When people who are prepared because they listen and they observe, when those people are prepared, that's when everybody talks about how the hoarders came out and they took everything. That's just more class warfare. Except it's not about class, it's being prepared and not being prepared, listening to the warnings and not listening to the warnings. The biggest problem we have in America is a deficit of truth. And we are all participating in it every day. We're all either regurgitating things that are not true, or we are the source of things that are not true, or we stand by and let things that are not true stand. And that has to be reversed. How many of us are actually on the search every day in our own life, not news, in our own life, searching for truth? Most of us are searching just to keep our head above water. Most of us are just trying to, honestly, get to bed with the homework done and all the kids safe and just let me get to bed. That's basically what I think we do. If you're in the throes of raising children, you know it is a nightmare to raise children right now. It's a nightmare. Why? Because our foundation is rotten. When I say what's the foundation of America, what would you say it is? The foundation of America. What are the cornerstones? Declaration of Independence, Constitution. I don't think so. I think our cornerstones were God, truth, and the vehicles that helped you find that. The Bible, your church or synagogue. When those things are strong, we don't need government because we take care of each other, because we do the things that we're supposed to do. You know, our churches are emptying out. Well, there's no way to be able to cover everything in our local communities without churches. Our churches help people. They feed people. They do all the things that the government will have to do if those churches become weak. But we don't go because, well, they don't say all the things I want to hear. And they make it tough. If you're not challenged when you go to church, you're going to the wrong place. Israel means wrestle with God, one who wrestles with God. We should be wrestling with the truth. Do you pray for pure truth? Do you pray to be able to discern what's true and what's not? It has finally come to the day that I said to Stu, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, I said, there's going to come a time when you won't believe your eyes or ears. You remember that?
Yes, although it was not 35 years ago.
How many years? 25 years ago. 25 years ago.
It's still a little long. We haven't been together that long. I don't know you that well. Jeez.
We've been doing the show for 21.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we worked together, and we were in Connecticut working together when I said that to you.
Yeah, so that's a little over 20 years ago, yeah.
Okay.
But it's been a long time.
So what I said was video manipulation, audio manipulation is going to get so good that you won't be able to believe your eyes or ears. I've seen these on Instagram. I've seen these Tom Cruise deep fakes.
Yeah.
The one with him playing the guitar, the one with him doing something in his backyard or something. And because they're not outrageous, I absolutely thought they were him. Just thought it was him. I mean, I didn't pass it on to anybody else or anything, but I was just flipping through, and I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know he could sing like that. That's great. It looks exactly like him. It sounded exactly like him. And there's no way, sorry, I don't know why that happened. Okay, don't know.
Your point has been approved. That's what we have a new system here on the show.
Is,
when
yeah.
Glenn makes a good point, it gives us a little chime.
But how do you know what's true and not in a society where you can't believe your eyes or ears, and you can't believe your politicians, and you can't believe your media, and your media is telling you not to believe people like me? Why would you believe me? Unless you've been with me for a very long time and you know what I believe and you know how I act, but honestly, we'll get it wrong too. So, how do you know it's true? There is such a thing as absolute truth. There is. They're always eternal in nature. This is why that poem, The Gods of the Copybook Headings, is so true. Because the things that are big, we can't argue over policies right now, and that's what's happening. We're arguing over a spending bill. Well, why are we arguing about that? We should be arguing the bigger principles, because those are the ones that are screwing everything up. We've forgotten all of the principles. We thought they were true. For instance, you have a right to lead your life the way you feel you need to lead your life. And nobody can interfere with that. No government can do it. State government can. You know, a state government could say, we're doing vaccine mandates. But the federal government can't. We're not talking about the balance of power, and that's what half of the country is talking about. When we're having the debate on vaccines, We're having the debate, really. You can't do that as a federal government, but we're not having that argument. We are not really truly debating the big principles, and it is the big principle that we have lost. And honestly, it's the only answer. Is this next election going to solve it? No, it's not going to solve it. Donald Trump runs. You've seen that movie before. Donald Trump doesn't run. It's Rick DeSantis. Okay. Not Rick. Ron DeSantis. What is wrong with me? It's Ron DeSantis. So Ron DeSantis runs. What do you think they're going to say? He's worse than Donald Trump.
Of course. They do it every single Republican presidential nominee.
Every time. So it's not going to be solved. Because what's really happening to us is we have lost our mooring to the truth. We've lost the ability to even know how to seek the truth. We have lost our moorings on the fact that there is even truth. It's your truth, my truth. No, that's not truth. That's your story and my story. The story of my life and how I got to where I am. The story of your life and how you got to where you are. That's your life story. That's not your truth. That's your life story. Truth is something you take your story and you put it up against and you try to reconcile them. And when it's out of line with truth, you know exactly what to fix. The truth is, we're all born the same. We don't have equal opportunities, and we don't have equal outcomes. We should try and strive to make sure everybody has a similar opportunity. But you can't guarantee opportunity because some people are born into families that are minorities and they have no money, but they have incredible parents. Some people have a lot of money and are white and in the white community, but they have horrible parents. I'll bet on the one that has the good parents, and I don't care what color they are. I'll bet on the one that has the good foundation. That's an opportunity we can't fix for everybody. We have to hold some things as true and know that they're true. Everybody is born the same. Everybody has a right to speak their mind. Everybody has a right to make their own friends and be with their own people. Everybody has a right to publish what they deem news without the government interfering. Everybody has a right to defend themselves. You go into some place and you've got a bunch of people who have pipes. I have a right to survive the pipe fight. These are all basics. These are our foundational things, but they all come from eternal truths. Those eternal truths, we used to find them in the Bible. You can find them in nature. That's why it says nature's God in our founding documents. Find them in nature. But they are true. Recognize that and make sure that you are searching for pure truth. Go to the big things. Forget about the small things that we're arguing about in politics and look for the big things that build your foundation. And then act on those locally.